at 2:47 a.m. On October 12, 2025, near Novocherkassk, Russia, just 560 miles from the Ukrainian border, a group of Atesh partisans waited in total darkness, only 300 feet from a key railway. Above them, a Switchblade 600 drone sliced through the cold air at 115 miles per hour, while nearby Russian officers slept soundly, completely unaware. The drone's target wasn't the train itself, but the signal control system that guided it. One strike would cripple the network, freezing a 2,000-ton freight train loaded with artillery shells in the middle of nowhere, turning a moving threat into a motionless one. This was the culmination of a calculated intelligence mission exploiting a fatal weakness in Russia's defenses. Atesh partisans, working with Russian insiders, had mapped every inch of this 12-mile railway segment. They knew the exact schedule of the train carrying 2,155mm shells. More crucially, they discovered that the Nebo-M radar's 3.6-degree upward tilt left a thin blind zone near the ground, a perfect corridor for a small drone. Then came the psychological warfare. Atesh operatives spread whispers of an FSB mole within the Rostov command, and paranoia did the rest. Russian officers began doubting shadows, slashing their night patrols by nearly 50%. The stakes were enormous. This single railway served as the lifeline, delivering 60% of all artillery and rocket supplies to the Zaporizhia and Kherson fronts. Disabling this artery would starve Russia's entire southern war machine. Yet on paper, it was still a suicide mission. Russia had upgraded its Panzer S-1 defenses with 360-degree radar built to destroy drones up to 2.5 miles away. A Lear-3 electronic warfare system further blanketed the region with a 150-mile GPS jamming bubble. The challenge wasn't just getting a single drone through. It was delivering a crippling strike without triggering every defense system within 12 miles. At 2:51 a.m., the Russian supply train crossed the invisible threshold, officially entering the kill zone. The stage was set. The Atesh operator didn't aim for the locomotive. A direct strike on a moving armored target was too risky. Instead, he chose the smarter play: immobilize the target, turn a 2,000-ton moving problem into a stationary one. Then, the command was given. Miles away, the Switchblade 600 began its final dive. Its target: a small concrete signal box, the electronic brain of the entire railway section. The drone's 34-pound shaped charge detonated on impact, a jet of molten metal slicing through concrete and vaporizing the circuitry inside. In the train's cab, warning lights flared red. The signal ahead went dark. Protocol demanded an immediate stop. The engineer slammed on the brakes. The screech of grinding metal echoed for miles as the colossal train ground to a halt. The target was now frozen in place. This was the moment the partisans had waited for. Exploiting the reduced patrols caused by their psychological ploy, they had planted a series of M18A1 Claymore mines the night before, carefully hidden under gravel and debris. Now, with the train stopped perfectly in range, the next command was sent. A coded radio pulse triggered the explosives. A storm of steel ball bearings erupted sideways at nearly 4,000 feet per second. The mines didn't just cut the rails, they shredded them, twisting heavy steel into a mangled wreck. The train and its deadly cargo were now completely stranded, but destruction rarely goes unnoticed. The explosions lit up the night and created a massive electronic signature. 12 miles away, operators at a Nebo-M radar station jolted awake as alarms screamed across their monitors. Something significant had just happened. The hunt began instantly. A command flashed to a nearby Panzer S-1 battery, and its powerful phased array radar swept the skies along the suspected axis. Ukraine had expected this response. The trap was already set. The moment the radar went active, 3 false targets appeared. Ukraine had anticipated this exact moment. As soon as the Pantsir radar came alive, 3 separate contacts appeared on its screen. Bayraktar TB2 drones flying high and steady, easy to spot and impossible to ignore. Their mission was simple: draw fire, act as decoys, and light up the sky. To the Russian operators, the math looked perfect. 3 threats appeared, 3 were destroyed, mission complete. But in their confidence, they overlooked the oldest military trick: distraction. While they celebrated success, a 4th drone approached from an unexpected direction, unseen and silent. This drone was no ordinary aircraft. It was a captured Russian Orlan 10, rebuilt by Ukrainian engineers. Unlike standard drones, It needed no live signal to guide it. Instead, it followed a preloaded flight path using inertial navigation and terrain comparison to stay precisely on course. The Orlan wasn't listening for commands, it couldn't be jammed. Its only purpose was to deceive. It began transmitting a powerful, precise X-band radar, signature identical to that of a high-value Ukrainian strike drone. The Panzer system, fresh from its easy victory, locked onto what it thought was the real threat. The defense computer calculated a firing solution and launched 6 57E6 missiles, each worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. But the missiles weren't tracking the Orlan or the partisans. They were chasing the fake radar source located 2 miles away, directly over a lightly guarded Russian ammunition depot. The result was devastating. The missiles, designed to shred aircraft, tore through thin warehouse roofs. A moment later, 15,000 pounds of 122mm shells ignited in a chain reaction, creating a single colossal explosion. A blazing fireball rose 300 feet high, lighting up the night as if dawn had arrived early. The explosion sent shockwaves of fury across Russian command posts. From a nearby airbase, an Mi-28 Havoc attack helicopter roared into the sky. This wasn't an automated system, it was a human hunter, armed with Vickers missiles and a mission: to find and annihilate the source of this humiliation. The Atesh team had outsmarted a machine, now they had to outrun a man. At 2:58 a.m., the Havoc began scanning the area using thermal imaging guided by NEBO-M radar data. Within seconds, it detected heat clusters, human bodies, and faint traces from their electronics. The Atesh operatives. From a distance of 5 miles, the pilot received clearance and fired a Vickers missile. Traveling at Mach 1.8, it would reach them in 14 seconds. For the partisans, escape was impossible, but blinding the missile was not. Their leader reached for the team's last defense, a crude homemade radio jammer. The device was simple but brutal. A power source wired to an antenna, blasting chaos across the 5.8 GHz band. Expecting a clean signal, the missile's radar seeker was instead drowned in noise. Unable to distinguish the target, it veered off course and exploded harmlessly in an empty field. The Havoc's pilot was stunned, but Russian defenses had one more weapon: the Peresvet ground-based laser. Designed to burn out optical sensors, it activated immediately, attempting to blind Ukraine's reconnaissance drones. But Ukraine's next move would prove that their most dangerous weapon wasn't flying, it was driving. From a concealed position 1 mile away, a second Ukrainian team launched a swarm of 20 FPV drones. Each was a handmade quadcopter loaded with 2 pounds of C4. The Peresvet laser was useless. It couldn't burn sensors that weren't guiding. The pilots flew manually using fiber optic tethers and pure instinct. Their target wasn't the Havoc, it was the main logistics bridge connecting Novocherkassk to the front lines. The swarm raced forward at 60 miles per hour, darting below the treetops. On the radar, the Havoc's pilot saw them, but it was far too late to react. The swarm's true target was the logistics bridge linking Novocherkassk to the southern front. The drones accelerated to 60 miles per hour, streaking below the treetops like a storm of angry hornets. The Havoc's radar detected them, but the pilot had no time. There was no way to stop what was coming. The FPV drones slammed into the bridge's concrete pillars in rapid succession. Each 2-pound C4 charge detonated at the same weak points, delivering the force of a demolition crew's hammer. The 600-foot bridge shuddered violently as the steel supports screamed under the repeated blasts. With one final cracking roar, the central span of the bridge collapsed into the river, dragging tons of twisted rail with it. Out of missiles and with his objective in ruins, the Havoc pilot had no choice but to retreat. Around him, chaos and fire consumed the valley. The explosion at the ammunition depot became a blazing distraction. Russian emergency forces rushed toward the fire while the Atesh partisans slipped away unnoticed. They didn't flee, they melted into the darkness, following pre-planned escape routes. Their mission was complete. The devastating success came down to physics and precision. This wasn't random destruction, it was a calculated demolition. The first detonations chipped away the weathered concrete, exposing the bridge's inner rebar skeleton and preparing it for the final sequence of strikes. The following drones hit the exposed supports directly, each explosion amplifying the next. Like a boxer setting up a knockout punch, the initial blasts weakened the structure, while the final ones delivered crushing pressure over 30,000 pounds per square inch. The concentrated shock waves fractured the concrete from within, spreading microcracks like lightning. 20 rapid-fire detonations acted like a relentless jackhammer, pulverizing the pillars until they lost all strength. Structural collapse was inevitable. The bridge's supports crumbled, unable to carry their immense load. The 600-foot span plunged into the river, transforming from a strategic lifeline into a twisted sculpture of steel and rubble. The artery of Russia's war effort was severed. By dawn, the damage was staggering. A critical ammunition depot turned to ash, 500 feet of rail mangled beyond repair, and a $20 million bridge resting at the river's bottom. Sirens wailed as emergency crews scrambled in every direction. FSB and Spetsnaz units flooded the area, not to rescue but to suppress. Their goal was containment, a total media blackout. Hours later, satellite photos confirmed the operation's success. 14 high-resolution frames showing a 30-foot chasm where the bridge once stood. Yet the true impact wasn't physical, it was strategic paralysis. The strike triggered a domino effect that reached deep into the front lines. 60% of all ammunition bound for Zaporizhia and Kherson stopped cold. Nothing moved. The supply trains froze in place, leaving artillery batteries silent. Hundreds of Russian guns, the backbone of their southern offense, became useless monuments of iron. The ammunition they needed now sat on the wrong side of a collapsed bridge. Inside command posts, paranoia exploded. The planted rumors of an FSB mole took root, and commanders accused one another of betrayal. Coordination broke down completely. Meetings devolved into shouting matches for 72 crucial hours. While Russia's leadership tore itself apart searching for traitors, Ukraine seized the moment. Exploiting the silence of Russian guns, they advanced 3.5 miles along the Zaporizhia front. Moscow called it a temporary logistical issue. Ukraine called it Tuesday. With a handful of $400 drones and relentless ingenuity, Ukraine turned a billion-dollar Russian supply chain into rubble. The lesson was clear. In modern war, victory belongs not to the richest army, but to the smartest one. So now the question remains, if you were the Atesh commander, what would you strike next? The main fuel depot or the Nebo M radar site?